across the country. Yeah, on the west, warm. 13 degrees in Calgary, 12 in Vancouver. Stunning conditions. Edmonton, 2 degrees. Not too bad for those visiting that ice climbing challenge. Meanwhile, on the east, yeah, a little bit chillier than what you would have experienced a couple days ago. -2 in Ottawa, -8 in Toronto. But you are above the freezing mark in Atlantic Canada, 4 degrees in Halifax, and just around the freezing mark in St. John's. As we head to tomorrow, though, we see we're getting a little bit chillier for those across Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Regina just at that freezing mark there. Meanwhile, cooler conditions on the way for those in southern Ontario. Ottawa now at -13 for your Sunday, so you'll certainly want to bundle up as we continue your weekend. Now, taking a look at your forecast in Atlantic Canada, you could experience some rain on your Saturday overnight in through Sunday, especially if you're in Halifax, Sydney, St. John's, throughout that Avalon region. You could expect upwards of 10 millimeters of rain. And for those in Halifax, also 10 millimeters of rain is possible. If you are in that Gander area or northern portions of Newfoundland, that's where you could expect more like 20 millimeters of rain. Now, those winds, they're going to be gusty as well, over 50 kilometers an hour for the most part for most of your weekend. But those temperatures on the back end of this system are going to take a little bit of a nosedive, especially if you're in like Charlottetown, for example. You get 1 degree on Sunday, but then you have to contend with -10 on your Monday. Gusty winds for those in southern Ontario as well, upwards of 50 kilometers an hour on the shores of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, which is where we're watching for some lake effect snow. As we continue into your Saturday afternoon, you see these bands here progressing through Barrie, Kincardine, Owen Sound. Just be aware of any drifting snow while you're driving, but not major accumulation on this, just about 5 to 10 centimeters if you're in that Barrie, Owen Sound, Kincardine area. Anywhere further south towards London, Windsor, just about 3 centimeters. And don't be concerned if you see a flake flying through the sky across the GTA. Now, your temperatures certainly have cooled down in the past couple days, -8 in Toronto and Bancroft. Meanwhile, Huntsville, Barrie, -12. Sudbury, -15. Yeah, getting into those cooler conditions again. But we do have a little bit of a roller coaster ride on the way because we bump right back up across the GTA. Toronto specifically getting upwards of 6 degrees on your Wednesday, but you could see some instability with that. Meanwhile, on the west, I mentioned those temperatures quite warm. You could see some rain if you are on the central coast of British Columbia this weekend. And on the back end of this cold front, temperatures are going to start cooling down for you across the prairies. We'll talk more about your temperatures in the program here on Weather AM. So take an adventure across our own country here in Canada. Some of those places are actually, all of them, I've never been to myself. One of those for the bucket list. We have entered meteorological spring. It's finally March 1st. Not officially spring for everybody yet, but at least the meteorological spring can give us some signs of good news if you're a fan of the warmer conditions. Speaking of warm conditions, check out the February calendar. All the colors in orange are the hot streak that Calgary's been on with those warm temperatures going from -17 and today more like 12 degrees. That is a significant bump up in those temperatures, and hopefully you can enjoy the weekend ahead if you are anywhere in Alberta. Pleasant conditions for you. Meanwhile, speaking of spring, we did experience our first thunderstorm of the season, of the year, I should say. This was in the Hamilton area. We did see some lightning. We heard some rumbles of thunder on this as some rain made its way through. Now the rain is going to continue making its way through, but this time that's where you'll experience it in Atlantic Canada for your weekend. Meanwhile, on the west, those temperatures, like I mentioned, warm degrees. Calgary could get up to 13, Kelowna 10, Vancouver 12, Victoria 10. Double digits. Yeah, welcome to meteorological spring. Meanwhile, on the east, cooler conditions for those, St. John's just at that below freezing mark. Saguenay -8. You can see the cool air up north here in Timmins, Thunder Bay. And then down towards the GTA, just around -8 there. Windsor -4, which is quite chilly compared to the past couple of days that we have experienced those warm temperatures. Now, as we take a look at your Sunday, the warmth remains on the west. Cooler conditions for those across Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and even cooler conditions for those in southern Ontario. Welcome to meteorological spring. Warm temperatures across the west. And speaking of avalanches, Here's a look at our avalanche danger. Pretty considerable danger across many of those high elevated areas. So do be aware if you need to travel anywhere through a mountain pass today that there is avalanche warnings in effect. That is all because of those warm conditions, warming up those snowpacks. 13 degrees in Calgary, 16 in Lethbridge, 12 in Medicine Hat, 10 degrees in Jasper. You get the gist of it. Quite warm for those on the far west. Meanwhile, throughout Manitoba, chillier conditions there with some cold air. -9 in Winnipeg, -7 in Brandon. Thompson sitting at -11. And Saskatoon, you're just above that freezing mark. Well, Prince Albert and Regina sit at that freezing mark. Now, we are monitoring this rain on the west, but as this cold front makes its way across the prairies, you could even experience some flurries down in Calgary. Now, how do you get from 12 degrees to seeing flurries? Well, right now, the warm conditions are all thanks to those downsloping winds, and those are going to remain for your Sunday. But as we head into your Monday and that cold front makes its way through, that's when we get those cooler conditions. Now, 2 degrees, feeling more like -1, not an intense amount of cold air, not an intense wind chill value, and you do finally rebound as you head into your late work week or at least next weekend. So those temperatures still remaining for the most part above the freezing mark across Calgary. Now, here's a look at the timing on this snow that you could see. As I mentioned, upwards of 5 centimeters as this makes its way through. Here it is, Medicine Hat, Calgary. That's for your Monday afternoon. So if you do need to travel, just be aware that you could experience some snow. Meanwhile, on the far west coast, central portions of British Columbia, Sunshine Coast, you could experience more of a rain event for your day on Saturday and through Sunday. You finally get a little bit of a relief on your Monday, though, but then cloud cover starts to make its way through. Those temperatures, though, remaining fairly warm in those double digits. Whistler even at 11 degrees, which is partially the reason why we have those avalanche warnings, right? It's just so warm up there, and you've already seen so much snow in those high elevated areas, and now that snowpack is beginning to melt. Nelson, 14 degrees, pleasant conditions, 12 in Osoyoos there and 15 in Abbotsford. And you can enjoy these warm conditions for most of your week in Vancouver. Now we have all of your forecast details for the month ahead, and here to dive into those details is meteorologist Rhythm Reed. Now, Rhythm, before we get into the March details, let's take a look back at February. What were the conditions like across the country?
Well, like you said, Victoria, winter showed up this year, especially across the western portions of Canada. But March, is a little bit more of a roller coaster ride.
For sure. And, March, we could see snow, we could see thunderstorms, we could see rain, we could see a little bit of everything. Where does March rank on your favorite months, Rhythm?
It has to be number 11 from the bottom because it's too much of a roller coaster for me.
It really is, and I'm curious to see what the first half of March is going to look like across the country.
Well, like I said, a roller coaster, and that's exactly what we're going to be seeing across Canada for this first half of March. But that still means that more milder air can be infiltrating.
As we head into the end of March, can you give us a sneak peek at what we can expect? I mean, we're approaching spring.
Well, yeah, and that's some good news for people in the east. When we are headed towards the mid and late half of this month, we will see a pattern flip leading to those above seasonal temperatures across Ontario, Manitoba, and southern Quebec.
The year. Welcome to the meteorological spring. It's not officially spring yet, but here at the Weather Network, the meteorological version of spring is finally arrived, and it really did come because we saw our first lightning and rumbles of thunder in the Hamilton area in Ontario. Now, this trough is making its way across the east, bringing with it some rain to Atlantic Canada, and as well as some lake effect snow to those in southern Ontario. Now, this trough is making its way through past Fredericton, Charlottetown, and then making its way towards St. John's in that Avalon region. It's mainly going to be a rain event for those in Atlantic Canada. As you can see, upwards of 5 to 10 centimeters through the Fredericton area. Sydney as well could see 10 centimeters. And then for those on the Avalon, you could also see 10 centimeters there. If you're in Gander, a little bit more at 20 millimeters. Now, we could see some strong wind gusts as well throughout the day, which we are expecting to see across southern Ontario too. Now, we are monitoring some lake effect snow across the shores of Georgian Bay, Lake Huron. We could see upwards of 10 centimeters accumulative through Kincardine, Owen Sound. But if you are anywhere north or south, rather, I should say, towards that London area, just a trace around 3 centimeters. Across the GTA, you likely won't see much snow, but you could see a flake flying through the sky, a couple of flurries. Just keep in mind those winds are going to be gusty, and the temperatures are certainly cooler than what we've experienced this past week. Toronto -8, Bancroft -8, Barrie and Huntsville a little bit chillier at -12. And the rest of the week is looking like a roller coaster ride with cool conditions to end your weekend and warm conditions midweek. Now, this was the sunrise in Port Stanley. Those warm conditions have come and gone, and we're back into those negative digits. -8 in Toronto, feeling more like -17. Just keep in mind those winds are going to be a little bit gusty too. So you're going to want to make sure that you bundle up. If you're headed to Niagara Falls, similar there too, -5, feeling more like -14. And if you're headed to Ottawa, chilly conditions on the way. We have all of your forecast details right now with meteorologist Rhythm Reed.
Now, February definitely did end on a snowy note. Winter came and went, and we officially have had the snowiest February on record for Toronto. Now, today is the first day of meteorological spring, so March does mark that. So even though we've gotten those warmer conditions over the past week, that is not staying by any means. We also got to see something interesting where we saw some thunder. Thunder last night. However, these are some of your temperatures for this afternoon. Around 9 to 11 degrees below seasonal, widespread across southern Ontario. A little bit of a closer look into the GTA. Those wind chills will be sticking around, making feel closer to the -teens, and with it, those gusty conditions as well. Through the morning, we saw gusts as high as 60 kilometers an hour. Through the afternoon, that's going to continue to be the case. Gusts anywhere between 40 to 60 kilometers an hour, so it's going to be cold and it is going to be a little bit more frigid. On the back end of this, however, we will continue to see the risk of some snow squall activity across regions of southern Ontario, highly impacting areas right along the shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Some of those will be making their way into the Golden Horseshoe through the day today into tomorrow as well. But luckily into Sunday, those bands are going to be a lot weaker as the winds do start to weaken up. In terms of snowfall accumulation, Kincardine right off of the shorelines of Georgian Bay, 5 to 10 centimeters can be expected, whereas further towards the central portions of the province, that's where we have less than 5 centimeters. Now, like I said, we are going to be dealing with those cooler temperatures, and that's that cold air sinking on in, but we will start to see it taper off and get a little bit more into those spring conditions heading into Tuesday. So this is just a look forward into your Sunday as well, those cold temperatures sticking around, and then into your Tuesday, we are above the freezing mark and above seasonal.